He arrived with a grin and a lens, said he was here to capture Africa's soul on film. But the truth? He wasn't collecting stories. He was collecting intel. What seemed like a documentary in the making was, in fact, a silent mission. He wasn't searching for truth. He was tracing targets. It began without noise. A pale man with polished shoes and a smooth French accent stepped off a flight at Ouagadougou International Airport. Tourist visa in hand, press badge pinned to his chest, he introduced himself as an independent journalist, curious about Burkina Faso's security dynamics. At customs, he praised President Ibrahim Traoré for standing up to Western powers. Few young African leaders dare to challenge the global order, he said, his French fluid and charming. Locals warmed up to him. He shook hands gently, offered bottled water to cab drivers, gave notebooks to kids, bought tea in remote villages, and snapped pictures of sunsets and stray goats. But his camera was capturing more than beauty. It was collecting data. In the weeks that followed, he showed up in places that most journalists avoided. Near army camps, along railway tracks, around mining routes. He asked guards about transport paths and cargo patterns. When a soldier joked, "You question more than our colonel?" he chuckled. That's what makes a good reporter. At night, he returned to a quiet guest house on the city's fringe. Never seen at bars, never heard at parties. But there was always that one odd thing. He made overseas calls daily, never using local numbers. He never published anything. No blog posts, no social updates, no tags. Said it was all part of a confidential European investigation. But weeks passed, and nothing ever surfaced. No stories, no bylines, no French publication with his name on it. At first, people chalked him up as odd, but harmless. Maybe just another quirky foreign journalist. But everything shifted one night when someone spotted him lurking near a restricted radio tower. That's when the quiet watching began. Burkina Faso's intelligence services didn't sound alarms. They observed, patiently. They shadowed his routes, mirrored his digital footprints, and cloned his SIM card without ever touching his phone. They read his emails, listened to his calls, monitored every text, and what they uncovered had nothing to do with journalism. It was a covert operation. When President Ibrahim Traoré saw the files himself, he didn't order an arrest or send in armed men. He opted for something far more calculated. He invited the spy to speak, live, on national television. Chairs were arranged in silence, microphones adjusted without fuss. The announcement came discreetly, a press briefing in Ouagadougou, hosted by the presidency. But it wasn't a typical media event. No international outlets, no camera crews from CNN or RFI, no glossy press kits or prepared questions. Just a handful of local journalists, and one unexpected addition to the guest list, Mr. Julien Morel, independent reporter from France. He walked in alone, tan trousers, crisp white shirt, the same badge he flashed at immigration, no entourage, no camera crew, just a worn-out notebook, a shoulder bag, and that familiar, confident smirk. He had no clue what awaited him. As he stepped past the gate and greeted the guards with casual ease, "Here for the president's media briefing," he said. The soldiers nodded, but their eyes didn't blink. Inside, the atmosphere was tense, eerily still, like the pause before a storm. The cameras were already running, silent observers mounted in the corners. A single microphone stood in the center of the room, and 6 chairs formed a tight half-circle, like an interrogation theater disguised as a press event. Julien walked in with ease, took a seat, and casually flipped open his notebook. He scanned the room. No smiles, no greetings, just silence. Chilling, tight-lipped silence. Still, he shrugged it off. Maybe it was cultural awkwardness. Maybe local journalists didn't know how to act around Europeans. Then the door creaked open. President Ibrahim Traoré entered. Tall, composed, not in a suit or presidential robe, but in full military uniform. No aides, no ceremony, just calm authority. His eyes scanned the room and locked on Julien. Julien stood quickly, hand extended, rehearsing charm. "Mr. President, it's an honor. I was hoping we could..." Traoré shook his hand firmly, eyes unblinking. "You've been asking many questions about us, Morel," he said with a steady voice. "Today, I'll give you answers. But first, I have questions of my own." Julian's smile faltered. just a flicker. His brain raced. Was this just tough diplomacy or something else? Of course, he said with a thin, nervous grin. That's the nature of an interview, isn't it? But this wasn't an interview. Not today. Traoré hadn't summoned a journalist. He had summoned a spy. And in the next few moments, the cameras wouldn't just capture answers, they would expose betrayal. The questions began, not with a bang, but with a quiet click of the camera's red light, blinking steadily like a ticking clock. 6 journalists sat motionless, notebooks open, pens poised, but unused. In the center of the room stood President Ibrahim Traoré, calm, barehanded, and radiating control. Across from him, Julian Morel shifted in his seat, tugging slightly at his collar. He'd conducted dozens of interviews before, presidents, warlords, CEOs, but this time, something was off. Traoré wasn't smiling, he wasn't there to charm, he wasn't even looking at the cameras. His eyes were locked on Julian. "Monsieur Morel," he began, voice low but steady. "You've been in our country for 23 days, yes?" "Yes, Mr. President," Julian responded quickly, trying to mask the dryness in his throat. "I've been collecting stories, filming communities, trying to understand..." "Understand what, exactly?" Julian hesitated, just for a breath. "The challenges your people face: security, development, international pressures." Traoré gave a slow nod, then motioned with his hand. A soldier stepped forward silently, holding a thick sealed folder. "You've visited 9 areas near sensitive military zones," Traoré continued. "You've filmed 3 strategic sites, posing your questions to guards under the pretense of interviews." Julian's pupils contracted. His breath caught, just for a second. I'm a journalist," he said, forcing a nervous laugh. "That's our job. We go where the stories take us." Traoré stepped forward, measured and quiet. "And do journalists also send encrypted emails at 2:13 a.m. to servers hosted in Abidjan?" Julian didn't speak. He couldn't. The room tightened. From the folder, the soldier pulled out photographs, one by one. A shot of Julian hunched over a laptop, encrypted mail client open on screen. Another, grainy and sharp, Julian standing outside a military radio tower, phone raised. And a third, chilling, screenshots of coded exchanges with a man identified by Burkina Faso's intelligence as a French military contractor operating under diplomatic cover. One of the local journalists audibly gasped. Julian swallowed hard. This wasn't a press conference anymore. This was an unmasking. Julian's complexion drained to gray. I can explain." "Then please do," Traoré said calmly. But no explanation came. No confident words. No quick deflection. Julian wasn't answering questions anymore. He was standing at the edge of an interrogation, live, on camera, in front of a nation. Traoré turned to the lens. "This man says he came to understand our people, but in truth he mapped our vulnerabilities. He traced the flow of our minerals. He charted our troop paths. He didn't come to document Burkina Faso. He came to compromise it." Then, with a voice steady enough to quiet a storm, he declared, "Let the people decide. Was this journalism or betrayal?" The silence that followed hit harder than any accusation. No one moved. No one blinked. In that moment, Julian Morel, the man who had come to expose Africa, was being exposed by Africa itself. Julian's fingers trembled as they brushed his bag, unsure of what to do. Grab his notes? His passport? His pride? But it didn't matter. The air in the room had shifted. This was no longer a press conference. It was a reckoning. President Traoré's voice cut through again, cold and measured. "Mr. Morel, do you deny these photographs, the messages, the recordings?" Julian opened his mouth, but the words were gone, vanished into the suffocating silence. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead, not from the heat, but from the weight of a plan unraveling before the world. Then the door opened again. A second soldier stepped forward, holding a black laptop, Julian's laptop seized during the night, without a sound, without a trace. And now, like everything else, it too had become evidence. Traoré nodded and switched on the projector. "Let us show you something," he said calmly. The wall lit up with a real-time map of Burkina Faso, pins marking oil routes, mine locations, and 2 unmarked military storage depots hidden in a folder labeled "For Review." Gasps echoed through the room. Julian shook his head slowly, trying to deny, "I didn't mean it. It was just notes. I didn't send..." Traoré cut him off, holding up a printed email. "Then explain this. Target's movements predictable. Palace security thin near Westgate can be monitored for future asset placement." Julian's face turned pale. "No, that's not. It's fake. It was sent from your encrypted email at 2:17 a.m. from a guest house in Zone 3, Traoré said firmly. "We don't forge evidence, Mr. Morel. We collect it." Local journalists stared, some whispering prayers, others just shocked at the man who once walked confidently, now trembling. Julian had come with a plan, but he underestimated the country, its intelligence, and the man across from him. Traoré returned to the microphone and looked directly into the camera. "This is what they send us. Not aid, not apologies, but spies with cameras who call themselves journalists. They think we'll smile and stay quiet, but that time is over." Then, turning back to Julian, he said quietly but firmly, "You came for stories. Now, you are the story." And just like that, Traoré gave the order. "Escort him out." 2 guards stepped forward. Julian Morel didn't resist. He lowered his head and walked out the same way he came in. Only now, he wasn't holding a camera. He was inside the frame. By sunset, the press room was empty. Cameras packed, chairs folded, but the moment between President Ibrahim Traoré and Julian Morel had already left the room. It was everywhere. Within an hour, the first video clip hit social media. It showed Traoré calmly asking, "Do you call this journalism or betrayal?" followed by images of the laptop screen, military maps, intercepted emails, and finally, Julian silently escorted out by guards. Across Burkina Faso, people gathered in cafes and homes, replaying the footage. One man shouted, "He caught a spy live on TV." A grandmother near Kaya whispered, "We've waited a long time to see a president stand tall like this." Across West Africa, the video spread like wildfire. TikTok, WhatsApp, Facebook. People watched Traoré flip the script. They came to study us. Instead, they were studied. In Senegal, students painted a mural of Traoré with the words, "Africa has eyes now." In Ghana, a viral tweet read, "He didn't raise his voice, but he raised the standard." In France, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a cold statement. "We are reviewing the situation and expect fair treatment for all citizens." But they said nothing about the evidence, the maps, emails, or Abidjan connection, because they couldn't. Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, Julian Morel was under formal arrest, not for journalism, but for unauthorized surveillance and national security breaches. He was moved to a secured facility outside the capital, but this was bigger than one man. It was about every microphone used to gather secrets, every handshake with hidden conditions, every photo taken with double meanings. President Traoré didn't make another speech. He didn't have to. The world had already heard his message in that room. "You came for stories. Now you are the story." And as the video kept going viral, one thing was clear across Africa. This wasn't just about catching one spy. It was about standing up to them all. On TikTok, people in Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, and Mali reposted the clip with captions like, "This is how you protect your country." He exposed Julian without touching him. Africa was awake. In Burkina Faso, shops stopped playing music. They played the press conference instead. People gathered at tea corners, replaying it on phones. Old men nodded silently by their radios. One woman in the market said, "They used to come with guns. Now they come with cameras." On TV, it was even bigger. National news ran the clip repeatedly. Not just the walkout, but everything. Photos of Julian near military sites, the laptop with sensitive maps, an email titled "Palace Entry Point, Low Visibility," sent to Abidjan. No one could deny it, not even France. Still, they tried. In Paris, the ministry issued a brief statement. "We are monitoring the situation and will ensure our citizen is treated fairly." They never mentioned the evidence or tried to explain because they couldn't. Meanwhile, across West Africa, the mood was different. This wasn't just catching a spy, it was breaking the cycle. Borders didn't matter. People shared one message: enough. Julian Morel, the man who arrived with a smile and a camera, was now held in a military safe house. No interviews, no press passes, no audience. He requested a lawyer from the French embassy. Traoré answered publicly, "We have a bigger case, and it belongs to Africa." The man who came to expose others was now exposed before the world. The press conference ended. Julian wasn't free. He was inside military detention awaiting trial. The video reached every corner of the continent. President Ibrahim Traoré stayed silent for 3 days. No press, no speeches, because the evidence spoke. On day 4, he left the palace, not for foreign reporters, but to address his people. In a simple school courtyard, children sat on the floor. Farmers, traders, students, soldiers gathered. No scripts, no notes. Standing in the sun, he said, "They've watched us for years, not to help, but to control what we say, build, and dream. They sent one man with a camera, but it wasn't a camera. It was a weapon aimed at our future." He scanned the crowd. That man claimed to be a journalist, but his memory card held more maps than interviews, more bases than quotes, more targets than truth. He didn't come to tell our story. He came to steal it. The crowd was silent. Some nodded, others cried. Then Traoré said words that echoed across Africa for every future spy. The next man who arrived smiling with soft words and hidden wires. "Don't mistake our silence for blindness. We see you now." That line sparked a movement. In Ouagadougou, it was painted on walls. "We see you now." On TikTok videos across Ghana and Nigeria, "We see you now." In university halls from Dar to Dar es Salaam, people chanted, "Salam, we see you now." No arrests beyond Julian Morel. No embassies stormed. No chaos. Just a quiet message delivered with calm fire. They taught us how to hold a camera. Now we know how to aim it back. That's how it ended. No gunfire, no shouting. Just one man caught in his own game and a continent reminded of its power. This time, Africa didn't stay silent.